It's SEC Championship weekend as the 10-2 Georgia Bulldogs face the 11-1 Texas Longhorns. Georgia won the first matchup 30-15. Texas is looking to be the first team to win the SEC championship in their first year. Georgia is trying to reach their fourth consecutive conference championship game, the first time since 1993 to 1996. And they also can become the first team to defeat the same opponent in the same season since 2010. With that said, let's welcome in Jordan Hill, staff writer for Dogs247.com, and Chip Brown, senior writer for Horns247.com. Fellas, what's going on?
What's
How's
up?
it going?
Man, let's get to this matchup. Texas is averaging 245 yards per game in his last two wins. Chip, how critical is it for Quintravion Wisner ability to rush the ball to keep this attack going?
Yeah, Quintravian Wisner has emerged as a star in this offense, along with some adjustments that Texas has made in terms of how they're manning and zoning their inside and outside zone runs, their bread and butter runs. And so it seems like the offensive line and Quintravian Wisner they're talking the same language. They were not talking the same language in that first meeting against Georgia when the Bulldogs just seemed to, treat the Texas offensive line like a turnstile on Black Friday. So that is the added wrinkle to this game. If Texas can run the football, that becomes Quinn Ewers, the quarterback's best friend, because he'll have the benefit of play action
Mm-hmm.
To get the passing game down the field for some of those big strikes that Texas was able to get against Texas A&M last week, and they were absolutely not able to get against Georgia when they suffered 7 sacks of both Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Didn't matter which quarterback was in. So Quintravian Wisner, a big key to Texas having a chance to win this rematch.
Georgia has been highly inconsistent in the last two games. Jordan, what is it going to take for Georgia to have that dominant defensive performance again?
It's kind of strange, Smoke, to look at this Georgia team and figure out what the issue is with the defense. It just comes in highs and lows, and really the Georgia Tech game on Friday was a great example of what this whole season has looked like. Probably 2.5 quarters of really struggling on defense, poor tackling, inability to stop a really good Georgia Tech rushing attack, and then probably the last 20 minutes of regulation, then into overtime, played fantastic. And, talking about Quintravian Wisner, I mean, a big part of the conversation on Saturday is going to be, can Georgia stop the run? The last 2 weeks, playing UMass gave up 226 rushing yards. That was a 2-win UMass team that ran all over Georgia. And then Georgia Tech took it a step further and rushed for 260 yards. So I think that that's going to be a huge key to this. I think this Georgia defense understands that it's sort of like the kid that if he would just apply himself, how good he could be in school, could get all A's, but they just haven't been able to capitalize, to play consistently, to tackle well on a regular basis. I think they understand that this is a very dangerous Texas offense they're going up against on Saturday, and if they have a game similar to the one they had against Georgia Tech on Black Friday, they're probably going to be leaving Mercedes-Benz Stadium with a loss.
Now let's get into the matchup of Georgia's offense versus Texas defense. Now, Trevor Etienne, unlikely to play in this game. Who are the players that need to step up to fill in that void in that Georgia rushing attack?
Let's start with Nate Frazier, a true freshman who has done a commendable job in the time that Trevor Etienne has been out. Trevor got hurt in the first half of that Florida game, so we're looking at several games now. I think that's 5 now that Nate Frazier's essentially been the starting running back. And imagine a guy that was playing high school football out in California this time last year, and now he's the number 1 running back in one of the top teams in the SEC. He's done a really good job, but he's got to have really good ball control, ball security. on Saturday. It's something he struggled with at times. He nearly had a fumble in that Georgia Tech game, but the play was blown dead on the field, and they couldn't overturn the call upon replay. Another guy I would say, Cash Jones, who's from Brock, Texas, a guy that has played a lot on third downs for Georgia this year. A walk-on that has played really, really well. Had some big third down conversions in the game against Georgia Tech. Had a touchdown catch in overtime against Georgia Tech. Expect a lot from him. And then sort of the other guy that we really want to see what he's able to do, Roderick Robinson, a sophomore who got his first snaps of the season against Georgia Tech. He had a foot injury back in fall camp. He was expected really not to play this season, but did a really good job rehabbing that injury. Back against Georgia Tech, didn't play a ton, but did look good in the time he was on the field. Had a good catch right before halftime. Had a really nice chip block on one play while he was out there. I think it's going to kind of take a committee, especially if Trevor Etienne is not able to go, which I'm not anticipating. They're going to have to get everybody involved to try to get this ground game going.
Texas has only given up 11.7 points per game. Least amount they've given up since giving up 9.5 yards in 1983 when they played in that classic game in the Cotton Bowl. Now, what is it going to take for them to have that same historical defense in this matchup?
Yeah, that 1983 defense was a critical part of Texas playing against Georgia for a national championship. Of course, Georgia won that game 10-9. This go round, I don't think the Texas defense is getting enough talk. Even in the game against Georgia, they intercepted Carson Beck 3 times, and they are third in the nation in interceptions with 17. And they're number 2 in scoring defense, number 1 in pass defense. They're top 5 in red zone defense and third down defense. And they have playmakers at every level. They can get pressure on the quarterback. They're stopping the run in the interior of the line with big Alfred Collins and Jermaine Lole. You've got Anthony Hill, who's a lightning fast linebacker who really controls the center of the field and can rush the passer. And then the Texas secondary, they're the number 1 pass defense in college football for a reason. They have unbelievable communication. They just rarely get fooled. They rarely give up the big play. So the Texas defense is going to be the reason that Texas is competitive in this game more than they were in Austin on October 19th. And I know Carson Beck is 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in their last 3 games. Texas will definitely be looking to change that up on Saturday in Atlanta.
Jordan, keys to victory for these Bow Wow Bulldogs to get this win.
Chip hit on a big one when it came to turnovers. Carson Beck's done a really good job. Really, since the Texas game and then 2 weeks later against Florida, he had 3 interceptions in both of those. Got to take care of the football. I think the onus is on Georgia's receivers. They've really struggled at times. Had a FBS leading 36 drops this season. Second is UAB, and there's not a lot of offensive categories you want to be stacked up with UAB this season. They've got to play better. They've got to get separation. It was something they struggled with in that win against Georgia Tech. Got to be reliable. And, this is an offense that has started slow at times this year. I don't think you can afford to do that against Texas. Looking on the other side with the Georgia defense, got to stop the run, which is definitely easier said than done with the way Wisner and these guys are running the ball right now. But probably not going to have Christian Miller for this game, a very productive defensive tackle. They're going to have to find ways to stop the run, not only because of how dangerous that ground game is, but I think that Georgia's best bet of winning this game is putting a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers to make plays. He's a guy that I think if you put a lot of weight on him and the pressure on him, I'm not convinced that he is good enough to beat Georgia on his own. I think if they can stop Texas on those early downs, force those third and mediums, third and long, I think that's a recipe for success on Saturday.
Chip, second time around for these Hook'em Horns. They've been playing dominant defense. They've been running the ball well. What are the keys to victory for Texas to come out with this one?
Well, it starts with the Texas offensive line acting like they are not completely bewildered by Georgia, the late shifts by the defensive line from a 3-man front to a 4-man front or vice versa. Um, you know, Kirby Smart's the best at getting his defensive line to stem and make that late shift adjustment. Texas looked like they'd never practiced against it. In the first meeting, 4 false starts by Texas, derailed 4 separate drives by the Texas offense. Again, talked about it being a turnstile for Michael Williams and Jalen Walker to come, crashing through, sack Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning 7 times. They've got to be prepared for that. And I expect that they will be, because that was embarrassing. Steve Sarkisian totally outcoached by Kirby Smart in that first meeting. If they can protect Quinn Ewers showed against Texas A&M, which also has a strong pass rush, that he can beat you. And I think he's healthier than he was against Georgia in the first meeting. He was, still 2 weeks removed from coming off that oblique injury. So I think that, the combination of the Texas offensive line handling that Georgia stemming by the defensive line, protecting Quinn Ewers and giving Quintravian Wisner lanes to run, that will help play complementary football, because last time they met, the Texas defense intercepted Carson Beck 3 times. Texas only got 7 points out of those. That's not complementary football. So let's see if the Texas offensive line can protect Quinn Ewers better than last time.
Well, thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Chip. For more coverage on your team, go to dogs247.com. For the Texas Longhorns, horns247.com.